Welcome back to my channel Shattered Trust Stories, where we explore the untold stories of relationships, heartbreaks, and the unexpected twists of life. The morning of our 20th wedding anniversary felt like a milestone. 2 decades together, building a life, raising our children, and sharing countless memories. I thought it was going to be a day of celebration, a time to reflect on everything we had accomplished together. My wife, Emily, had insisted on planning the event herself. She told me she wanted to make it unforgettable, and I believed her. Little did I know how true those words would be. The evening began with a lavish dinner party at a beautiful venue Emily had chosen. Friends and family gathered, their faces glowing under the soft lights. Emily looked stunning in a deep blue dress that hugged her figure, her smile radiant as she greeted the guests. I remember thinking how lucky I was, how much I loved her even after all these years. As the evening unfolded, everything seemed perfect. The food was exquisite, the music enchanting, and the laughter of our loved ones filled the room. Emily was in her element, moving effortlessly from table to table, ensuring everyone was comfortable. I watched her with pride, unaware that beneath her grace and charm, a storm was brewing. About halfway through the night, Emily announced there would be a series of toasts to honor our anniversary. She started with a heartfelt speech, talking about the journey of marriage and how much she appreciated my love and support over the years. Her words were touching, and I felt a lump in my throat as the room erupted in applause. Then she invited others to speak. Our friends shared funny anecdotes, our children expressed their love and gratitude, and everything felt so warm and genuine. I was overwhelmed with emotion, thinking about how much we had achieved together. And then, a man I didn't recognize stood up. He was tall, confident, and impeccably dressed, holding his glass of champagne with a smirk that didn't sit well with me. Emily introduced him as a close family friend, though I had no memory of meeting him before. My curiosity turned to unease as he began his toast. 20 years, he said, his voice smooth and dripping with sarcasm. It's a remarkable achievement. And I have to say, Emily, you've managed to keep things interesting. The room chuckled lightly, but there was an edge to his tone that sent a chill down my spine. He went on, weaving vague compliments and subtle jabs that seemed harmless on the surface but felt deeply personal. I glanced at Emily, who was nervously sipping her champagne, her smile strained. As the toast continued, the man's words grew bolder. He spoke of secrets, of hidden truths, of the complexities of love. My unease turned into outright suspicion. Something was off, and I wasn't the only one who noticed. The once lively room grew quieter, tension thickening in the air. Then he said it. To 20 years of marriage, and to the man who never knew. The room went silent. My heart stopped. Emily's face turned pale, her eyes wide with panic. I stood up, demanding to know what he meant. The man smirked, pulling out his phone. With a few taps, he projected a series of photos onto a screen behind him. The images were damning, Emily and this man, together in ways that left no room for interpretation. Romantic dinners, weekend getaways, moments stolen away from the life we had built. Gasps echoed through the room. I felt like the floor had been ripped out from under me. Emily tried to speak, but no words came. Her betrayal was laid bare for everyone to see, and there was no escaping it. The man continued, detailing their affair with a cruel satisfaction. He revealed how it had started years ago, how they had hidden it so cleverly, and how Emily had used our resources to fund their secret life. Each word was a dagger, cutting deeper than the last. I looked around the room, at the faces of our friends and family, at our children who were now in tears. The devastation was palpable. My hands trembled with anger and heartbreak, but I refused to let it consume me in that moment. Instead, I took a deep breath and stood tall. Emily, I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside me, is there anything you want to say? She broke down, sobbing and begging for forgiveness. She claimed she had made a mistake, that she loved me and wanted to make things right. But her words rang hollow. The evidence was too clear, the betrayal too deep. I turned to our guests, addressing them with as much composure as I could muster. "I'm sorry you had to witness this. Tonight was supposed to be a celebration, but instead, it's become something else entirely. I need time to process this, but I want you all to know that my priority is my children and their well-being." With that, I walked out of the room, leaving Emily behind. I didn't look back. In the weeks that followed, I filed for divorce. The legal battle was messy, but I had the support of my friends, my family, and, most importantly, my children. Emily tried to salvage her reputation, but the damage was done. The fallout from that night was irreversible. Through it all, I found strength I didn't know I had. I rebuilt my life piece by piece, focusing on my children and rediscovering my own sense of self. What started as the most painful experience of my life became a turning point, a chance to create a future built on honesty and integrity. Looking back, I realized that night was a blessing in disguise. It exposed the truth, freeing me from a life built on lies. And while the scars remain, they serve as a reminder of my resilience and the importance of living authentically. That night was the end of one chapter and the beginning of another, a story of heartbreak, revelation, and ultimately, renewal. In the months following the divorce, I threw myself into rebuilding a life that was entirely my own. It wasn't easy. Some days, the weight of betrayal felt unbearable. Memories of Emily's smile, her laugh, her whispered promises of forever, all played in my mind like a cruel loop. But each time they surfaced, I reminded myself of the truth: she had chosen deceit over the love we had built together. My children were my anchor. While I worked hard to shield them from the fallout, they were old enough to understand that their mother's actions had torn the family apart. My oldest, Mia, was particularly angry. She refused to speak to Emily for weeks after the revelation. My youngest, Jake, though quieter, wore his sadness plainly. As much as it broke my heart to see them hurting, their loyalty to me was a reminder of why I couldn't let this situation define us. One night, as I was tucking Jake into bed, he looked up at me with tear-filled eyes. "Dad," he said, "why did Mom do it? Didn't she love us?" I paused, swallowing the lump in my throat. "Jake, sometimes people make choices that hurt others, even the ones they love. It doesn't mean they don't care, but it does mean they have to live with the consequences of their actions. No matter what, I love you, and I'll always be here for you." Those words seemed to comfort him, but they also solidified something within me. I was determined to give my kids the stability and love they deserved, even if it meant carrying the emotional burden on my own. Emily, meanwhile, tried to salvage her relationship with the kids. She showed up at soccer games, sent long messages apologizing, and even attended therapy in a bid to prove she was changing. But trust, once shattered, is hard to rebuild. The kids were cautious, and I didn't interfere. I told them it was their choice how they wanted to handle their relationship with her. For me, healing came in waves. I started going to the gym, not just to get in shape but to clear my mind. I reconnected with old friends I had lost touch with during the marriage, finding solace in their support. Slowly, I began to see the cracks in my life not as weaknesses but as places where something new could grow. One of the most unexpected turns came when I was invited to speak at a local community group about resilience and starting over. It wasn't something I had planned, but a friend convinced me that my story could help others. Standing in front of that room full of strangers, I shared my journey, the heartbreak, the betrayal, the fight to rebuild. As I spoke, I realized that the pain I had endured wasn't just a burden, it was a lesson. It had taught me about the strength I didn't know I possessed, the importance of self-worth, and the resilience of the human spirit. After the talk, a woman approached me. She introduced herself as Rachel, a single mother who had been through her own painful divorce. We started talking, and there was an instant connection. Rachel wasn't just kind, she was understanding in a way that only someone who had been through similar struggles could be. Over the next few months, Rachel and I became close. We bonded over our shared experiences, our love for our children, and our determination to create better lives for ourselves. She was patient and compassionate, never pushing me to move faster than I was ready. Eventually, our friendship blossomed into something more. For the first time in years, I felt a sense of joy and excitement that I thought I had lost forever. Rachel and I took things slow, always putting our kids first, but it was clear that we were building something special. Emily, of course, didn't take kindly to this new chapter in my life. She made passive-aggressive comments during co-parenting exchanges and tried to cast doubts about Rachel's intentions. But her efforts only strengthened my resolve. I wasn't going to let her toxic behavior control me anymore. When Rachel met my kids, it was a cautious but positive experience. She didn't try to replace their mother, and the kids appreciated her sincerity. Over time, they grew to love her, and our blended family began to take shape. Years later, as I stood at Mia's high school graduation, I looked around at the life we had built. Rachel was by my side, Jake was smiling proudly next to his sister, and even Emily had shown up, though she kept her distance. When Mia delivered her valedictorian speech, she surprised me by dedicating a part of it to her family. "My dad taught me what it means to persevere," she said, her voice steady and clear. "Even when life knocks you down, you get back up and keep going. He showed me that love isn't just a feeling, it's an action. It's what you do, even when things are hard." Her words brought tears to my eyes. In that moment, I knew that every struggle, every heartbreak, had led to this, a life rebuilt on love, strength, and resilience. The betrayal that once threatened to destroy me had instead become the foundation for something beautiful. My story wasn't just about heartbreak, it was about redemption, hope, and the power of choosing to rise above the pain. And as I held my family close that day, I knew that we had all, in our own way, found our way back to happiness. The day after Mia's graduation was quiet, filled with a sense of peace that had taken years to achieve. As I sat on the porch sipping my morning coffee, I reflected on the journey that had brought me here. It wasn't just about rebuilding my life, it was about redefining who I was and what truly mattered to me. In the weeks following Emily's betrayal, I had been consumed by anger and heartbreak. I questioned everything: our marriage, my role as a husband and father, even my own judgment. How had I missed the signs? How had I let my life spiral so far out of control? But with time and reflection, I realized that dwelling on those questions wouldn't change the past. The only thing I could control was the future. Rebuilding that future wasn't easy. The divorce was a battlefield, with Emily fighting tooth and nail for assets she didn't deserve. She tried to paint herself as the victim, using every tactic her lawyer could muster. But I came prepared. Thanks to the evidence I had gathered and the support of a skilled legal team, I was able to expose the truth. The courtroom became the stage for Emily's unraveling. Witnesses, financial records, and her own admissions painted a picture of deceit and selfishness that couldn't be ignored. What broke my heart the most, however, was seeing how it affected our children. Mia and Jake were dragged into the middle of a conflict they didn't deserve, forced to witness the ugliness of their parents' broken marriage. It was during one of these court sessions that Mia, then just 16, asked to speak. She stood before the judge, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "I don't want to take sides," she began, glancing between Emily and me. "But I think it's important to say what's in my heart. My dad has been my rock through all of this. He's shown me what it means to love someone unconditionally. And while my mom's actions hurt all of us, I hope she understands that trust is something you have to earn, not demand." Her words were a turning point. Even the judge seemed moved, and Emily, for once, had no response. It was clear that the truth had finally caught up to her. After the divorce was finalized, I dedicated myself to creating a new life for my kids and me. I sold the house Emily and I had shared and moved to a smaller, cozier home that felt like a fresh start. I changed jobs, finding a position that allowed me to be more present for Mia and Jake. And I started therapy, both individually and with the kids, to help us process the pain and move forward. One day, while sorting through old photographs, I came across an album from our early years of marriage. There were pictures of Emily and me, smiling and carefree, blissfully unaware of what the future held. For a moment, I felt a pang of sadness. But as I flipped through the pages, I realized those memories didn't have to be tainted by what had happened later. They were part of my story, a chapter that had shaped who I was but didn't define me. Around this time, Rachel entered my life. She was a single mother with 2 kids of her own, and we met at a community event for divorced parents. Rachel's warmth and understanding were like a balm for my soul. She didn't judge me for my past or try to fix me, she simply listened and shared her own experiences. We started as friends, meeting for coffee or bringing our kids together for playdates. But over time, our connection deepened. Rachel taught me how to trust again, how to open my heart without fear of being hurt. She showed me that love could be simple and honest, without the drama and deceit I had come to associate with relationships. As our families blended, there were challenges. Jake struggled with the idea of another woman in my life, worried that loving Rachel meant forgetting his mom. Mia, on the other hand, embraced Rachel quickly, seeing her as a source of strength and guidance. Through patience and open communication, we found our rhythm. One night, as Rachel and I were sitting on the porch watching the stars, she turned to me and said, "You're not just rebuilding your life, you're creating something entirely new. And it's beautiful." Her words stuck with me. She was right. My life wasn't just a patched-up version of what it had been, it was a completely different tapestry, woven with resilience, love, and new beginnings. Years passed, and the wounds of the past began to heal. Emily found her own path, eventually moving to another city. Her relationship with the kids remained strained but civil, and I encouraged them to keep the lines of communication open. Mia went on to college, pursuing a degree in social work, inspired by the challenges she had faced during the divorce. Jake excelled in sports, his confidence growing with each passing year. Watching them thrive was my greatest source of pride. On the 10th anniversary of that fateful night when everything fell apart, I found myself reflecting on how far we had come. Life wasn't perfect, but it was real and honest. The pain of betrayal had given way to a deeper understanding of what truly mattered: love, family, and the courage to keep moving forward. Rachel and I eventually married in a small, intimate ceremony surrounded by our children and closest friends. It wasn't about starting over, it was about celebrating the journey that had brought us together. As I stood there, holding Rachel's hand, I realized that the scars of the past had become symbols of strength. They reminded me that even in the face of heartbreak, it's possible to find hope, to rebuild, and to create a life filled with love and meaning. This wasn't just my story, it was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the power of choosing to rise above life's challenges. And as we danced under the stars that night, I knew that the best chapters of my story were still to come.